meeting of the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee today, Tuesday, August 23rd. Call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the press and the public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. First order of business is approval of previous meeting minutes from July 19th, last month. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
and discussion. Is there anything that needs to be corrected in the minutes?
Not corrected, and I appreciate everything that Nicole's done. I had asked at the last meeting, rather than continued a discussion, if I'd be allowed to just submit my comments in writing. Nobody objected. I asked twice and it was approved, just so we can make clear that my comments were intended to be included as part of the.
They were, they are.
They are included.
They are.
Thank you, thank you. And then I had, and that's all I had to say about that.
Okay, any other modifications or anything? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Financial statements, we'd like to have a review from Debbie Suggs.
Can I make a motion at this time to reorder the agenda to allow for grant applications to be heard? I see a lot of people here and I don't want to impose on them unnecessarily. We did that last month.
Sure.
Yep.
You making the motion?
I'm making the motion.
Second. I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, sorry, Debbie, you're gonna have to wait.
Wow.
Okay, George, are you going to give the presentation?
Yep.
Okay, this presentation is in order to have consideration of application for funding by the VFW in the amount of $30,000 for a tourism enhancement program.
Thank y'all for allowing us to come back again today. The application that you have in front of you is identical to the one we presented back in July, except for page 4. A request was made that we give you a specific item to possibly give consideration for. And if you look at G, financial analysis, please provide line item budget for your project. And I stated new elevator necessary for all visitors with mobility issues. And our lowest bid was $41,970. That is attached. It's called at the top, American Elevator Company. And I think that was the best of 3 different bids that our president, Bo, was able to obtain. The only thing I would add is I'm an auxiliary guy. I'm not a comrade. I didn't serve. My father did. And I know these guys, and I know there were some questions about the VFW and that amount of money. But the one thing I have found out about all these comrades is they serve with honor and they will not use your money unwisely. And we really appreciate it. If you have any questions for me other than what's on this, I'll be glad to answer them. But I doubt you want me to go through my whole presentation again. Buddy.
Thank you, George, and thank you all for having us back. I wanted to comment on the bid of $41,970. Just so you know, and we spoke about it a little bit at the last time we were here about what we did with the courtyard renovation. And we appreciate the assistance with that. And we have committed, we had our post-business meeting in August of all the comrades, and we voted unanimously to move forward. So we just wanted you all to know that we made that commitment because the elevator is so unreliable, and not only for post members, but for every visitor, tourist, open to the public. And Barb, I believe it was you, and I didn't answer your question very well about how often are we open to the public. Technically, we're open to the public every day, because when we go in there, we have those sign-in sheets. Those are for our guests. So I don't know what I was thinking, but it is truly a partnership with the island. And the walkway is just getting such rave reviews and amount of people that use that. And just to make a point, you could probably sit on the top step where you go into the post and count the number of people that go by there. And in my estimation, for every one person that comes to the post, a member, there are probably 20 to 25 tourists, people that live off of the island that come by to go to the beach. We feel the same way about the elevator. It feel it is just critical for people for safety reasons and for convenience. So we want to make that commitment, and we did. We made it up front. So that has been an approved signed contract with 50% down. And that takes, I don't care whose check account you have, that makes a hit. So that's all I wanted to add. And again, we both thank you very much. Any questions?
I have one question.
Sure.
Does the VFW actually own the land and the building, or are you leasing it in some form?
No, we own it.
Perfect. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Any other questions?
Have
I
any
have
of you
quick
been, have
question.
you all been to the courtyard and seen the mural? And we did it in stages. The mural, and we had such problems with water gathering and a narrow sidewalk, and again, another safety hazard, if you will. But now it's like an interstate going through there. I mean, I was passing families with buggies and strollers, and I kept thinking, well, what are they gonna do when they get to the beach with all this stuff? But
Great, thank you.
Where do y'all plan on installing the elevator?
It's been approved. When would we install?
Oh, I think about 8 weeks roughly.
Or where? Where on the building?
We have an elevator in there currently in
Oh, you
the
do?
front, if you're facing them in the front left, and we're gonna replace that.
Replace it, okay.
It
right.
is the original elevator right after you go. It's a screw type elevator. They don't make it anymore.
Mhm.
They don't make the parts for it anymore. We've had to have the fire department come over a couple times, to get
Mhm.
it out. It's embarrassing. It also is a public facility, so we have to have an elevator. Yes, it's gonna be fun. So
One other quick note, and we chose the elevator because of the amount of people that can be impacted by that elevator. But when you know it, week before last, we got a call and our air conditioning went out. So we had to purchase a new air conditioning unit to just under $5,000. So we looked at it as a partnership. Like I said, with a little story about how many people walk down that courtyard through it. So we really do feel it is a partnership, and that's what we feel within our post. And that's the relationship I feel we have with the island as well.
Actually, I have a question for Desiree. Desiree, at our last meeting, as you know, we've allocated already $10,000 out of the $50,000 grant. This is 30, that would leave us 10 for the remainder of the fiscal year. Do we have an update in terms of if that budget is going to be increased at all?
The committee can make that request to city council. It would be up to their consideration. We historically don't make budget amendments. But if there are additional requests that you all want to recommend throughout the budget year that are outside of that scope, they could go to city council for approval.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Nicole, would you do it? Well, I need a motion. I need a motion on the floor for approval of the request from the VFW.
I so moved. $30,000 ATAX grant for the BFW's elevator.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Nicole, would you do a roll call on the votes?
Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Ms. Bergman, aye. Mr. Akers,
Aye.
Mr. Dressler,
Aye.
Mr. Coolidge,
Aye.
Ms. White.
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
thank you all for your support.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
So this recommendation is going to go to city council in September. They have a workshop on the second Tuesday of the month. They don't take any action at that time. But they'll discuss it and have a final vote on your recommendation by the end of September.
You know, when we would present in front of us.
I will communicate that to you all directly.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Floor is yours.
Okay, moving on, Debbie, I'd like to ask you to do the financial statements at this time.
It's really kind of boring. So, it'll be quick. We have an update on the FY 22 preliminary and unaudited results, and the major purpose of that is to get the committee's vote on a couple of overages.
Can you speak to you?
So, those are $2,642 over the budget for the Beach Barrel and Front Beach Business District trash pickup. This is the vehicle that goes down the beach and empties cans, and they also service cans on the street side of the beach accesses and in the downtown area. I checked with Donnie Pitts just to confirm, and their contract allows for additional on-demand requests when Donnie determines that those are necessary. So that's what has led to this over budget situation.
Do you know where the requests are coming from? For extra trash pickup? Is it coming from the front beach or is it coming from specific avenues?
I do not know that. It doesn't come from the public.
Yeah.
Donnie would direct them to, and I think it's more like when the beach trash gets bad, he just says, we need an extra run.
Yeah.
Is that all?
Oh, there's one more.
Thought there was
Body armor.
3 pages in, police department body armor. The spending has been offset by a rebate that the police department always applies for with Schmidt is the city's workers' comp carrier. But there's still $647 over budget on the body armor spending.
I make a motion that we approve the 2 overages.
Second.
A second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to July 2022. So 1 month into the new fiscal year. The balance sheet looks very strong. You can see in comparison to the prior year, we're ahead. Ending fund balance of almost $2.9 million. No revenues except a little bit of interest. And then moving on to expenditures. There aren't that many. I'll go quickly. There's expenditures related to the restrooms at Front Beach. The monthly charge for the beach barrel and trash pickup. Some small expenses associated with the staff meal for the 4th of July. And then a couple of pages back, the police department purchased a replacement low-speed vehicle.
So are these all, they're compared to FY 22 budget. So these are all things that will be in the closing of the FY 22 budget.
Now, I'm talking about FY 23 here. So July of 22 is in FY 23. So we're,
Right, but the column B says FY 22.
that's a typo.
Yeah.
It should say 23.
Okay,
But it is the FY 23 budget. It's just that the column heading is.
yeah, that's what I
incorrect.
thought, but I just wanted to make sure.
And then the only other thing is the $10,000 Isle of Palms Chamber of Commerce sponsorship that was mentioned previously.
Is that all?
That's all for expenditures. I did want to go briefly over this because I'm sure you were all interested in what the June 22 quarter revenue was from the state. The check amount was 1.369 million. And you can see how statutorily prescribed the breakdown there. The city's general fund got a total of 68,000. The 65% funds that this committee has purview over was 886,000, and 4,009 was the tourism promotion piece that was sent to the DMO. And then you can see in the total shaded column what the annual amount is. It's about what we expected, I think. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. First item for new business is consideration of a calendar for FY24 ATAX grant applications. And what that is all about is traditionally we have accepted applications over the course of a year and never really knew when they were going to come in, and we would handle them with a meeting as they were required. In doing research on other municipalities, we discovered that many places have a specific ATAX grant process where it's a one time a year event. And what that does for them is it allows them to budget for the new fiscal year coming in when they get all of the applications at one time rather than piecemeal. And to your point, Chaz, okay, we spent 10 and then we spent 30, or where we are with the 50, it would eliminate that whole activity. So the idea here, what Desiree has laid out is a timeline for how we would go about doing that. And do you want to speak to that, or I mean, I can, but you wrote it, so
Yeah.
probably would be better at it.
It's pretty, I mean, it's very simple. We would have an annual application process that we would advertise through the local paper. We would also put it out to, the Post and Courier. Also, I think it would be prudent for us to reach out to those that have received grant applications in the past couple of years, so just that they're aware of this change in the process. We would start that process in November. According to this timeline, we would have those ads running the first week of December. Then we would host a workshop for interested applicants, just to make sure that they understand eligibility requirements and understand what's expected of them in the application process. Just as a support, resource and support to prospective applicants. We would host that here in January. And by the end of the month, on January 31st, we would have the deadline for applications to be received. After applications are received, the staff would have an opportunity to review them for compliance, make sure the applications are complete, make sure that the activities that they're requesting funds are eligible according to state law. Once we have that review, we would then communicate to these applicants to come to an ATAX meeting and make a personal presentation to you all about their grant. And then the following month, you all would meet and then make recommendations to city council for those that you want to fund. The timeline is essentially baked into our budget process, because the idea would be to have your recommendation by March. Council will be finalizing their budget in April with second reading in May. So it really works out nicely for us to know if rather than $50,000, we have to budget a different amount based on the applications that are received. We also included in this timeline requesting those folks that receive a grant application from the city to submit a mid-year and a final report. This would help us have better records of proof that they used the funds that they were granted for the project that they applied for. I think it's just a good accountability process that we would be including in this process. And those applications that are recommended by you all that council then approves and includes in the budget would be awarded when the fiscal year 2024 begins, which would be July 1st of next year, 2020.
Right.
I would also recommend that we, which we've done with every other form and application that we have on the city, that we have the application online. I think the application that we have is dated and it could be updated and streamlined a little bit. And we'll work on that in the next month, before we put it out for the public. But that way it's just consistent. Sometimes, they're handwritten, people sometimes don't understand. So we would have the application process embedded on our website so that it's just consistent throughout.
And would you, in the new application, would you intend to put some sort of information to say the intention of having a feedback system, that there would be a report after 6 months or a
Yes,
year end,
that would
so
be-
that they know that is required for their grant?
Yes, I think we would include it as an acknowledgement that they sign off, that they acknowledge that they will be required to provide a year and a report.
Any questions?
I had a question, but first, a compliment. Thank you for doing this. I mean, I think it's really good. And for the new members, this has been a process. We started off a couple of years ago with a very limited process, and we've been fine tuning that. We've got we already have a very detailed set of guidelines that we go by that Desiree indicated we would need to tweak. I had sent her, I'd left a message for you saying I'd help you redline this so everybody could look and see what was actually done. My problem is, Gloria, I'm computer challenged. I didn't know how to do the red line editing, where you indicate what you crossed out and what you inserted, but I know you're so much younger, you don't have the ability to do it smarter. You have the ability to do it, but we've got a set of guidelines and we've got our application. All we need to do is make a few changes. I had one that was my compliment and observation. The only thing I wondered about is, I know you're gonna have this very good, and it provides you with flexibility. Does this give you all enough time? I mean, I'm thinking about your time.
Yes, the timeline.
For example, to report back on the meetings come in, it's reviewed a couple of days for a review, and then they're notified. Is that
Yeah, that's why we put. that's why we put
flexibility in
suggesting-
there? Okay, all right.
suggesting the timeline.
All right, I was trying to be mindful of y'all when I asked that question.
And looking at, I think Hilton Head does it this way, and they have an accommodation within their timeline. If the committee has questions on a presentation and the people given the presentation didn't have the answers, they have a little slot in the calendar that, if required to come back for a second review of a presentation, that's in there if needed. You
Right
can
now-
just, you have 3 weeks in there now, basically.
Correct.
So whether you have to say it or not, I don't know, but that's just something that if it's not stated, at least people understand that might be an eventuality of something.
And if that's the case, we could also ask them to come in on that March 7th meeting. Before you all make final recommendations, they can come in at that time and answer any
Sure.
questions. Or information could be distributed via email after the first meeting. So I don't think we need to add any. I
Okay.
think the 3 weeks already given us.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention it so it's sort of, at least in the back of our head, we're planning on it if it's needed. What do you need from us in order to go forward? I wouldn't think you need any motions or anything. I wouldn't think so. No.
I think it's a great step forward. Good work. Yeah, a lot of municipalities do it this way, and it's a great step forward for us.
Okay, next item, discussion of establishing a contract between the city and CVB. I'd like to kick off the conversation. I was a part of saying for the past year and a half that we should have a contract and the more I get into it, the more I'm having second thoughts. I look at the Charleston County contract and it's not doesn't do much. It protects them on legal things like indemnity and liability and misrepresentation and that. But when I was thinking in terms of a contract, I was thinking in terms of metrics and thinking in terms of, well, one thing I've had in mind is since CVB gave us a more detailed budget this year, we see where some of the money is being spent. And an example would be, there's like $30,000 in the budget for building a library of photographs and possibly video. And so I would like to make sure that the city owns that product. If we're paying for it, so therefore, if we had this library, the city could use it for whatever reasons they might want to use it for their website, the Chamber of Commerce, and the city would determine who can use it if they wanted, if they wanted to get some of that photography, but if the chamber wanted to use some of it, I would just think that it's the city's, they're paying for it, they should have ownership of it. And that's the kind of thing I was thinking would be more or less in a contract. I also think that maybe just can be accomplished with a commitment letter from CVB CEO to say, we acknowledge your request and we authorize you to have ownership of this photography product, or maybe that would satisfy. I don't know. But anyway, in my opinion, I don't think we're ready for putting together a contract. Although I would say that if the city feels it's prudent, then the city maybe task the city attorney to draw something up for us to review. I think we have more, at least I know personally, I have more work to do on researching what other municipalities have done. Having this one thing from the county of Charleston is a start, but it's not that helpful to me anyway. And so in having metrics in a contract, I notice, again, I kind of lean on Hilton Head Bluffton, but they do that in their contract. But in looking at what they have for metrics, we don't have an ability to get that information. And our community is a little bit different. When you have a Kiowa or a Hilton Head, it's kind of a planned community of itself. We're more wide open, so to speak. When you have the resort, you have private residences, short-term rentals, and on and on. So while I'd like to hear what everybody has to say, I'm personally not ready to have any recommendations on what a contract would look like.
I agree with you.
I think in most contracts with a PR marketing company or the ones I've been involved in, is you spell out your deliverables. And with that, I think we've got to take a step back and figure out first, which we've touched on a little bit, is who we are and where's our target market. And then you back yourselves into the deliverables that you want.
Yeah, I agree. There's been conversations about the whole branding aspect of IOP and we've never really had strategic marketing discussions with CVB about that. So they've not done it, but we had never asked them, as far as I know.
Well, I think we could start with them and ask them to help us with the
Right.
branding and who we want to be or what we are, who they think we are. I don't even know if we do. I
Right.
think we're going after everybody instead of saying maybe this is the best use of our dollars. These are actually who are coming to our island. But I think all that needs to be spelled out in the contract as well. So, and as far as the photographs, and I think again, with my experience, we've always owned our photographs.
I'm sorry?
We've always owned our photographs. When we have a PR company go out and they do photos,
Right.
and we're constantly adding to keep it fresh. So I think that's a good thing. And what you're asking is to make sure that we do it. and I think
Yeah,
that's a good
it's
thing.
pretty loosey goosey.
Yeah.
You know, they've given us a budget. It's been approved by city council and it's there, but it doesn't have anything, no language to say, well, who owns that product? You know, and so,
Well, I think again, within this contract, you also have a monthly, and we get it from our PR company. Again, this is just from my experience and a monthly of the mentions. Now CVB has on their website where Isle of Palms has been mentioned, how many times they've been mentioned, but you have to go to their website to see. I'm not exactly sure if they're reporting back to you.
They
In that.
report quarterly.
Yeah.
They also present, give that information to our board member. I think for many years, that information just made it to the board member. Now they're much more, they're
Proactive,
communicating
yeah.
much more and, you know,
Yeah.
sending that directly to us and, you know, bringing it to meetings, providing it.
Yeah. And they do a good job, but I think we could probably get a, excuse me, on a monthly reporting basis.
yeah, I spoke to Lori about it and she's intending to quarterly give us that presentation. So we have that information and can ask questions at that time as well.
And I'm certainly willing to help in any way I can if we need to do a contract or whatever I can do to help.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I'll echo the comments of everybody else. I could look at this contract. I think it's a great start to be thinking, but we need to stay in our lane. This would be something for council to deal and their lawyers. We don't want to play lawyer in this context. The county's contract is about 1/10 of what the Isle of Palms spends and doesn't necessarily meet our needs. We would have in a contract, you would expect. I looked at one for Sedona. I looked at one from Scottsdale. I looked at some audits that were done around the country. Looked at Hilton Head's contract and some others. We need to have a provision in a contract at a minimum of who would own the assets, who would own the intellectual property. What would be the consequences of assignment? Everybody knows we're dealing with this at the marina right now about some of the assignment issues. If I heard Ray correctly, what he's saying is we probably are better off at this point without knowing all the parameters. We be better off not having a written contract than a poorly written contract. Again, we need to know about the intellectual property. We need to know who, if for example, CVB left for whatever reason, who owns, they've got considerable assets, who would own those? If we paid for them, do we get some share? If they have property, do we get some share? And the list goes on and on. One of the main things that we'll see as we look through this is transparency and accountability. With most of the communities that are criticized haven't provided oversight or don't have any auditing process to know meaningfully how they've been performed. So I would suggest that'd be something for the city to deal with, and then they may come back to us. I don't know if it's necessary, but come back to us and ask us what our thoughts are before they actually enter into a contract.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions?
So, the committee has brought up a number of times the dissatisfaction in terms of the transparency and the reporting of the CVB, and that being their main concern with the relationship. The way I see it is that the legislation that the CVB and that the ATAX committee has to follow is very narrow in terms of its scope and requirements within the relationship. Basically, it is an approval of a budget, an approval of final, and per the revenue ruling that we do not have line item approval or veto of what the DMO does. So if those are the things that we're interested in doing, in having more transparency and having things much more like an agency client relationship as opposed to one that is prescribed by the legislation, we need to come up with those ideas and standards and go above and beyond the legislation to get the CVB to agree to that, because they don't have to per the code, right? So this is a first start, and it allows us to create the framework. And if we gave that to the attorneys with all of our comments, I think it would be a good way to approach the CVB in terms of being able to have something that backs up what we're trying to receive from them. And if they don't perform, then I would say, then we would have, even though the legislation is very tight in terms of our relationship and the choices that we have and so forth, we would have a good reason to pull out because of breach.
Okay, I would say, I feel like we're in a situation where things are changing and we're in the midst of change. We've requested a lot more detailed explanation on expenditures, and we've been told that CVB is going to comply with that and give us more detailed explanations about expenses that were made to the benefit of Isle of Palms. I'm willing to wait and see that. At our last meeting, I spoke to Lori offline, and I asked her if that's still the case, and she said that they intend to do that. So I'm willing to give them a chance to satisfy the expenditure part of it. On the budget part of it, I think they've improved on the budget side. I think going on a year from now, it could be better. But I guess to your point, we have to talk to them. We've got to tell them what we want and work with them within the framework of what they're required to give us more than the minimum. Give us as much as we can get concerning where our money is going. So in light of that, I'm planning on having a meeting in October. I don't know that we need to have a meeting in September. If somebody feels we do, we can discuss that. But the reason I'm targeting October is, in speaking to Lori recently, she expects that her fiscal 22 closing financials will be ready for the October meeting, and the additional detail on expenditures will be ready. She also will be is willing to go through that quarterly review on what they accomplished and what they did July, August, September. And in addition, I've asked Rusty Streetman to address this committee whenever he has gone to a Board of Governors meeting with CVB to report to us what was discussed, what's new, what's interesting, and what we need to know. I don't know why we never did that before, but we'll start that, and hopefully in October as well. So so I guess this conversation started with a contract, but it kind of morphed into all these other things. But that's where I'm thinking anyway. And anyone else has anything to say, I'd be interested in hearing it.
I just want to clarify. So what is our role in this? Because I feel like we're given suggestions and then we're not allowed to do anything. So I just need to know, like, where do we go? What are we as ATAX responsible for doing?
I think Desiree can probably outline those responsibilities.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation about a contract that's new, that's something that was discussed pretty extensively, but this committee, as part of their efforts of trying to, improve the relationship or get more accountability from the CBB. That was something that was being asked by some members of this committee, that the city must have a contract with the CBB. And it sort of migrated into the ATAX task force conversation too. And the task force did not specifically recommend that a contract be established. It was one of the suggestions to get more accountability with the CBB. And seeing that, there's another community that partners with the CBB that have a contract, we felt like, that would be a good place to start. But, from the very beginning, when I saw that contract, I knew it's not what some of the members of the ATAX committee were wanting to see. When you talk about metrics and, that's a different conversation. The contract essentially just establishes what state law says needs to happen between the relationship of a municipality and their regional direct marketing organization. But that's developing a contract or suggesting what a contract looks like. It's not part of the statutory requirements or responsibilities of this committee. Y'all can certainly make a recommendation to that effect to city council. That would be going outside of your scope, but I think as part of our efforts to try to expand and improve what we currently have, I think that's what some members of this committee wanted to have that conversation.
Okay, and that's what y'all are suggesting, right? That's what we're talking about here. I just want to make sure that,
But I'm hearing now that I think that the folks that I guess may have been suggesting and encouraging the city to pursue a contract with the CBB, that's no longer the case.
That's correct, partially correct, I guess. I mean, I have been an advocate of the idea that we should have a contract. I discussed that without doing a whole heck of a lot of research on what that contract would look like. Since recently, I've done a little bit of research and I feel we're not ready. I'm not ready for that. I don't know about we're not ready. I'm not ready. And so I feel as though I need to collect personally anyway, more information, more understanding, and then come forward with something that makes sense. So I'm not saying I'm not in favor of it. I'm just saying I'm not ready for it. I'm not ready for suggesting something at this point. I mean, maybe 6 months from now, again, my preference would be the relationship with CVB is a work in progress of improvement. And so it would seem to me as though let's go down that path and see what we can accomplish with and say maybe at the ultimate is to have a contract, but it's something that benefits city of Isle of Palms.
so we can make suggestions to the city council on what we think the contract should. Sure. And that's what you're offering. Okay.
And I think that when we talked about, and you wanted this to be,
And
included in
included.
the agenda, I don't think that we're planning on solving this issue today. I
No.
mean, it's definitely gonna take a lot of time. Do you all wanna wait until 6 months from now to see how the relationship with the CBB and the reporting and accountability from the CBB looks like, whether it's improved before we then start that conversation regarding a contract, or do y'all want city council to just deal with this issue separately at the council level and not be involved in those discussions?
Personally, I'm willing to let's work on this for the next 4 or 5 months to the end of the calendar year. Work with CVB and we can start talking to them about specific things that we would like to understand our position. Where do we stand on the ownership of that photography, as an example? If they're willing to say you have the right to that and we will give you a copy of all that, then that's a step in the right direction. And to have to put that in a contract, then the contract is not necessary for that purpose. Metrics is a whole nother thing, and in looking at that, it's because CVB is a regional marketing organization, it's hard to compare website metrics specific to Isle of Palms as you compare it to a Hilton Head or a Greenville or a Myrtle Beach. We don't have access to that information, and it's harder to get. I think for me, it's hard to get my arms around. But I'd like to, take next 4 or 5 months and give it thought and come up with ideas and have conversations with CVB and see where that gets us.
My comment is this has been a good meeting. It's productive. And we're trying to be proactive rather than reactive. We I think we owe a duty to CVB to communicate fairly with them what our desires are, what we feel like we need. I've looked at, for example, I'm looking right now at Atlanta suburb marketing service agreement for part of an airport, and it's very good contract. So Sedoma has another one. They establish metrics and abilities to review. We're not there. This is, I agree with what Desiree said, that this is an issue for city council to deal with, not us. But if we're going to ever make a change, it's only fair to communicate with CVB what our expectations are. If they're able to meet our needs, then we're all happy. If they aren't, we need to give somebody else another chance, and it would be only fair to let, whether it's the new Chamber of Commerce or anybody else, an indication of what we're looking for. So to put a cap on it, I think Ray's right. We continue to look at this information. We're getting more incrementally. We're moving in the right direction towards getting more information from CVB, and we're communicating what some of our wishes are to them, and hopefully we'll get this thing solved.
Okay. Next meeting, I was gonna suggest October 18th. It's a Tuesday. It would theoretically be a week before the October City Council meeting. So if we did have anything we wanted to bring to their attention, that would give that ample time to do that. Anyone have a
Right, what date? I'm sorry.
18th?
I will not be here. College visits,
Okay,
but I'm happy to. I can be on speaker.
You could do what I did last week. Did the R2 did too.
That can do that.
1 o'clock?
okay. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So move.
Second. All in favor?
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Good meeting.